My world shattered when my daughter revealed my wife's affair, leading to DNA test heartbreak, family betrayal, and ultimately my escape from a toxic marriage. I lost almost everything, but in the end, I rebuilt a loving home for my real daughters and finally claimed the happiness and strength I always deserved. For years, I really thought I had it all figured out. Perfect marriage, beautiful kids, a stable home. That came apart in ways I never could have imagined. My name's Ryan, 44 male, and recently I found out that my wife Emily, 39 female, had been living a double life behind my back. Honestly, it still doesn't feel real. It started a few days ago when my eldest daughter, Haley, 14 female, approached me with something devastating. She was nervous, but she told me straight out, Emily, her mom was having an affair. I tried to keep calm for her sake, telling Haley that everything would be okay, that Emily and I would explain things to her, but honestly, I had no idea what to do. I even thought about telling her that Emily and I had an open marriage, just to shield her from the harsh truth that her mom was cheating, disrespecting what we all thought was a solid marriage. Since then, I've been a shell, just going through the motions, pretending to be okay, feeling empty inside. Emily hasn't been home. She's staying over at her parents' place and barely says a word to me. Now I see why, because she's hiding, plain and simple. Part of me thought, maybe if I confronted her head-on about the affair, she'd snap out of it, end things with the guy, and come home. We'd always seemed like a great couple. We'd always made it work. Deep down, I was holding out hope that I could fix this. I probably sound like I'm just rambling. If I heard my little brother talk this way, I'd pull him aside and shake some sense into him. I used to see movies, read stories, or watch TV shows where spouses stuck together after cheating, and I thought they were fools, that divorce was the only answer. I always said, always, that if Emily ever cheated on me, I'd end it right away. But here I am, making excuses, sounding exactly like those people. From what I've been able to piece together so far, it seemed mostly emotional. Lots of back and forth, sending explicit photos. But when Haley first came to me, she told me she found all kinds of photos on Emily's phone, way more than I even wanted to look at. I've only managed to see 4, but based on the pattern, there are at least 30. Dread built in my gut as I scrolled through them. The more I found, the clearer it became that this wasn't new. This had been going on for a long time. It got worse. The longer I looked, the more doubts crept in, not just about Emily's loyalty, but about my daughters. Would it turn out that these girls I'd loved, raised, and sacrificed for weren't even mine biologically? Would I end up losing everything and everyone who matters most? I kept telling myself, don't make it public. Don't blow up the world for everyone. Whatever happened, I didn't want Haley or her little sister Piper, 10 female, getting hurt any more than they already had. I tried to play the part of a normal dad, ate dinner with the girls, pretended to be fine. But when they went to bed or were out of the house, I could barely stand. Couldn't eat, hands trembling, nauseous all the time. This wasn't some high school fling. This was my wife, and my entire life had been built around her and the family we made. I know deep down I should walk away, but it was too much. 5 children. There was a real chance, based on timeline, that 3, maybe even all 5 might not be mine. There are the twins, Mia and Zoe, 5 female, and Emily is currently pregnant. I was waiting on DNA tests to see if any were really mine. I realized that Emily was probably still seeing the other guy, and he'd probably want to be involved with the girls once everything blew up and the divorce went through. The thought of losing them nearly broke me. I love them like my own. They've been calling me daddy for 5 years. Their grins and giggles light up my world. When the DNA test results eventually came in, my fears were confirmed in the worst possible way. The twins and the newborn were not mine. I confronted Emily, and although she seemed sorry for the pain she'd caused, she admitted without shame that she didn't feel regret for the affair itself because she had fallen for the other man. The shock didn't end there. Her parents, Dawn, 63 male, and Margaret, 61 female, had known about it for a long time. In fact, they'd been actively helping Emily carry on her affair, letting her and the guy Mark, 42 male, meet at their house. Unbelievable, right? Her parents, who I thought would have some decency, chose to protect their image instead. They didn't want the scandal in their precious church community. They were both elders at a very conservative church, so they actively covered for Emily. They also argued they didn't want the twins to be separated from their biological father, Mark. Right now, Haley, 14 female, and Piper, 10 female, have been staying with my brother Kevin, 47 male, and his wife Lisa, 45 female. I just couldn't take care of them while my head and heart were a mess. They're hurt, angry at their mom, and barely even want to talk to her. Both of them are in counseling, trying to process what's happened to our family. I tried to take Mia and Zoe with me, thought maybe the 5 sisters could find comfort together, but Emily refused, pleading not to take them from her. As I was dragging myself away from their house, I saw Mark pull up in his car, heading into Emily's parents' home. Clearly, he was a fixture there now. Incidentally, Mark was married too. I reached out to his wife, Denise, 41 female, who told me she was divorcing Mark's cheating ass. I didn't ask if Mark even tried to save things with her. Honestly, I couldn't care less. Screw Mark, screw Emily, screw Margaret and Dawn. I always found them snobbish. Judgmental jerks. Actually, their holier-than-thou attitude makes their downfall that much more satisfying. Margaret and Dawn have now been kicked out of their church. Apparently, the church even scrubbed their social media completely clean of them. Watching their world collapse, in their eyes, the worst thing that could happen to them, gave me a strange sense of closure. Margaret actually called me up in tears, begging me to fix things. As if there was any way to repair this mess. Dawn asked me to reconsider, to work this out. I couldn't resist. I asked Dawn if he'd be so eager to save the marriage if he'd been in my shoes, if he'd been lied to for years by his own wife. He didn't say anything, just hung up. That told me everything. Emily still tries to reach out, endlessly texting, calling, leaving messages. I haven't answered. Part of me gets grim satisfaction in ignoring her, watching her desperation build. I honestly don't know what she could possibly want to say, and I'm not in any hurry to find out. I know deep down, I'll have to deal with her again at some point. Maybe in court, maybe for the kids. But for now, the silence is sweet. Before the DNA test results came back, I was ready to go to court and fight for custody of Mia and Zoe. Now, of course, it's pointless. That's a whole other kind of pain, feeling like you don't even deserve to keep fighting for the only family you ever knew. Every day is a struggle. At work, my colleagues look at me differently, some with pity, others just looking away. I stopped doing the grocery shopping. I can feel people whispering every time I walk in the neighborhood. I've dropped around 15 pounds since all of this started. Sleep barely comes. Even therapy, so far, hasn't helped. This has been the worst year of my life. Sometimes I think, if I had just kept my mouth shut in the car with Haley, none of this would have blown up. A few months ago, I could have been holding a newborn. I could have still been in my home, decorating, being a dad. Now the house is cold, empty, lifeless. It should be alive with laughter, filled with music. Emily was always goofing around, singing, and instead, all I have is silence. No pitter-patter of little feet, no warmth, no love. It feels like everything I've ever done, every sacrifice made, every laugh, every hard day was pointless. All I ever wanted was to build a happy family after growing up in a rough home myself. Seems like no matter how hard I try, I lose everything anyway. At this point, I don't even feel like a man. Hell, I barely feel human. Update. So, after all that, after all the second guessing and endless replaying moments in my mind, it felt like I was stuck in a maze, searching for a way out that I couldn't find. But then, it hit me. A kind of clarity, a spark of hope. Life doesn't end here. My story doesn't have to end here. I suddenly realized my identity isn't bound to my failure or to this mangled marriage, and sure as hell not to being the guy whose wife cheated. The hardest medicine to swallow was finally admitting the truth. Emily was never the person I believed her to be. She could have lived up to her vows, but instead she used her parents' house as her hideaway for betrayals. And Dawn and Margaret, who I thought actually cared, were just as bad, letting all this happen under their roof for their own selfish reasons. After everything, divorce was inevitable. When it finally happened, I was awarded custody of Haley and Piper. We started a new chapter together. I changed my number, packed our belongings, and moved us to another state, far from all the drama and the memories that nearly destroyed me. My number one goal was to create a new, loving environment for my daughters, to give them the life they deserved, a chance to heal, to be safe, to be free. With time, we rebuilt our lives, slowly. I went back to work, put my focus back into providing for my daughters. They went back to school, and somehow, we found our rhythm again. Each day, the pain lessened a little more, and the hope in our home outshone the darkness. Every once in a while, news trickled in from old friends back home. I heard that Emily was really struggling. She was raising the twins and the baby alone. Mark bailed as soon as the dust settled. He was out the moment the divorce finalized. Emily had to move back in with Dawn and Margaret. Sometimes she tried to get in touch with me, asking mutual friends if I'd talk to her. But I'd left all of that behind, and I was never going to let her back in. Not after what happened, I won't lie. Seeing her face the consequences of her own destruction brought me satisfaction. She chose all this herself. As much as she tried to avoid shame, she ended up isolated and broken. Still, part of my mind goes to the twins and the baby. They're innocent. None of this was their fault. But I reminded myself, they're not my responsibility. They belong to their true father. She made her choice. Getting through Emily's betrayal was the hardest thing I've ever faced. But with every passing day, I got a little stronger. Seeing Haley and Piper bounce back, watching them smile freely again, gave me more relief and pride than I can explain. I became the safe place for them, their anchor as our world shifted. More than anything, I'm proud of how resilient they are. Looking back, I realize I didn't lose it all. I found my strength, my peace, and a second chance to define my life. Emily, on the other hand, lost it all: a caring husband, her family, the respect of her community. Now I sit here, in a new home, with the sounds of my daughters laughing in the next room. The warmth is back. I've never felt more like a father or more like myself. Emily's betrayal didn't break me. In the strangest way, it made me. This is my new reality, my new life, and I wouldn't go back for anything. That's it for this story. This story is a clear example of how even the most stable-seeming families can be torn apart by betrayal, and how starting over is painful but possible when you focus on what truly matters. Sometimes, all the loss in the world can lead you to find your own strength. I've got a question for you. If you learned your family's foundations were built on lies, could you start over, or would you cling to what's left? Share your thoughts below.